What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for watching my video today. This week I'm back with my third installment of my NFL weekly game superlatives. I'll be doing these for every week's slate of games till week 18, end of the regular season. Now, last week, once again, these superlatives did not go the way I had hoped. My upset of the week pick, Saints over the Titans, the biggest potential upset, was already invalidated pretty much when Alvin Kamara was ruled out of that game before it even began on Sunday. Now, granted, the Saints did still almost win the game, but having Kamara in there probably would have been a huge difference maker. And then my game of the week, Packers versus Seahawks. Of course, I'm happy that the Green Bay defense, the first great Packer defense in almost, I would say, like 8 years, probably since there was 11, 12 teams. But nonetheless, Packers did get the win, but it wasn't the game of the week. It was very boring. The Seahawks looked lackluster, and even the Packers offense struggled in the first half. So this week, hopefully third time's the charm in my third installment of this. So I'm going to get right into it. Game of the week, I've got the Indianapolis Colts visiting the Buffalo Bills. Two teams coming off big wins. The Bills bounced back from an ugly upset loss to the Jaguars with a 45-17 trouncing of the New York Jets. Mike White, primetime Mike White, is no more. He threw 4 interceptions. It was very sad. And meanwhile, the Colts got a nice win as well. Jonathan Taylor has been running all over the NFL this year. He's likely going to lead the league in rushing now that Derrick Henry is injured. These are two teams with big playoff hopes this season. The Bills certainly have a better handle on getting the playoffs than the Colts. They're going to have to vie for a wild card spot. But the Bills should watch their back because the Patriots are catching steam in the AFC East. But this could be the best game of this week, game with the most implications in the playoff picture for sure. And I'm looking forward to watching this game. Now, for the most fun game of this week, it also could have potentially been the game of the week as well, but I'm still not totally sold that the Chiefs are officially back as contenders. We got the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Kansas City Chiefs in this week's most fun matchup. These are two offenses that, when they're on, they're phenomenal. And Dallas has been on a lot more than KC. They did have a weird loss to Denver a few weeks back, but they bounced back by easily blowing out the Atlanta Falcons this week. Chiefs got back on track with their own blowout of the Raiders on Sunday Night Football, but the Chiefs' offense obviously has been up and down all year, and their defense is one of the worst in the league. Dallas's defense is a bit better than it was last year, but it's still not top tier. So I'm looking for this game to be a massive shootout. Mahomes and Dak, I expect to have major fancy outputs, as well as guys like CeeDee Lamb, Travis Kelce, Ezekiel Elliott, and Tyreek Hill. So this game will be a whole lot of fun. The winner will certainly have a lot to gain in the playoff picture, especially the Chiefs if they win, getting up 2 games potentially in the AFC West. Tony Romo and Jim Nantz, especially Romo, of course, will probably be having a blast calling this game. So it's one everybody should certainly be looking forward to. It'll be a lot of fun. Something that won't be a lot of fun necessarily, the biggest blowout of this week, I anticipate. There's a few options for this one. Some people might expect me to say Texans versus Titans here, but when I look at the 49ers Jaguars game, that to me feels like the biggest blowout of this week. San Fran going to Jacksonville on the road, and they got a huge win over the Rams last week that very few expected. I certainly did not expect that, but they're really starting to come together these past few weeks, especially since George Kittle returned from his injury, giving them extra offensive firepower, along with Deebo Samuel, who's been electric this year. The defense is, although it's not quite as good as it was when they made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, it's coming on a bit as well. And this Jaguars team, as much as I love a guy like Jamal Agnew, who's been a revelation, the rest of that team, not too many other great things to say about the Jags. They're definitely headed for the top 5 in the draft once again, so I don't expect them to compete too much. And I think the Niners will get another big win, and that could really help them potentially enter the playoff picture in the NFC, which is still very wide open for those last 2 seeds. And the Niners definitely have an opportunity to make that playoff push. Now, 2 teams that don't have an opportunity to make any playoff push are the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets, 2 of the worst teams in the AFC, division rivals. They're facing off in what I think will be the biggest snoozefest game of this week. Tua Tagovailoa, I expect him to handle business with the Jets. I think even though both teams are very poor, I think the Dolphins are trending in the right direction after they beat the Ravens last week. I still don't expect them to catch up and make another playoff push. I mean, last year they won 10 games, they couldn't even get in. Now, the AFC is more wide open than it was last year for sure, but I think at 3 wins through 10 games is just too little, too late for the Dolphins to make a comeback. But I do expect them to get a nice win over the Jets here. But nonetheless, I'm not expecting this to be a fun game. I'm not even sure who's starting for the Jets. It's unclear if it's going to be Zach Wilson, although I think he's still hurt. It might be primetime Mike White. Well, as I mentioned earlier, he's not primetime Mike White anymore. Joe Flacco might be making his grand return to New York. Who knows? I could care less, to be honest. I will, of course, watch this only because I'll be watching Red Zone. It's going to be Thanksgiving break, so I'll be able to watch all the football this week. I have no obligations. I'm very excited. But I don't expect Scott Hansen to be talking too much about this game on Sunday. So the biggest snooze fest, Dolphins, Jets. And then finally, biggest upset potential of this week, I've got Arizona visiting Seattle on the road. And yes, I do think Seattle has a decent chance of winning this game. And I say that after the Packers defense just held Russell Wilson to his first ever game without scoring a single point in his career. And the reason I say this is that I have no idea what's really going on with Kyler Murray and Deandre Hopkins. They've both missed the last 2 games for the Cardinals. A banged-up Cardinals team ever since they lost that that devastating loss against the Packers on Thursday Night Football. They haven't had Kyler Murray in the lineup to bounce back. Now, Colt McCoy did wind up getting a nice win over the 49ers, ironically, who I was just praising. So maybe I should have taken a bit of a step back with the Niners, considering they lost to Colt McCoy 2 weeks ago. But I do stand by that. I think they're headed in the right direction. But nonetheless, the Cardinals lost last week to the Panthers, and even if Kyler returns for this game, that Cardinals offense has been a little, it hasn't been functioning like it was earlier in the season because of the absence of the star receiver and quarterback. And if Seattle, who let's be real, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and if Chris Carson returns as well, that's still 4 really good offensive players. Seattle's been a great offense pretty much all decade. And if the Seattle's, yes, they might not make the playoffs this year, but they can certainly steal a few wins, especially in a divisional game like this. And if the Cardinals are rusty, if Kyler's banged up, Seattle could certainly steal this one in a very competitive NFC West division. But the Cardinals will certainly hope that doesn't happen. But they can afford a loss, as 8 wins does tie them for the best record in the NFC currently. So that's going to wrap up my game superlatives for this week. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Keep up with the content. Now that the breaks are coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas break, I'll be home from college a lot. I'm hoping to make a lot more videos just on a bunch of topics more frequently. So that'd be really awesome if y'all could subscribe and keep up with that. Have a great rest of your day and have a good Thanksgiving.